We'll call the Tuesday, May 25th, City of Coalinga Planning Commission a meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Changes to the agenda.
No, Chairman.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Saylor,
Here.
Vice Chairman Jacobs, Commissioner Helmar,
Here.
Commissioner Garza,
Here.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Here.
Public comments under Government Code 54954.3. Members of the audience may address the commission on any item of interest to the public or on any agenda item before or during the commission's consideration of the item. State law prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on non-agenda items. Did we get any public comments?
I have received none, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move right along. We don't have anything under the information and consent calendar. We have one item under public hearings. Planning Commission review and approval of city planning applications CDA 20-01 and further adopting resolution number 021P-006, recommending to the City Council approval of a tentative subdivision map, general plan amendment, rezone, site plan review, and certification of initial study mitigated negative declaration for the Heritage at Coalinga Alzheimer's and Assisted Care Community located at the northwest corner of Phelps Avenue and Gregory Way. Sean.
Thank you, Chairman,
Thank you.
Commissioners. I will not be reading my staff report verbatim as there's a bunch of information in here. But I know that you guys have had time to kind of review the documents. There's a lot of attachments, a lot of information provided. So I'm going to kind of give some highlights, kind of what the commission today is considering, what next steps are, and then kind of give you an overview of the overall project. So tonight, staff's recommending approval, or at least recommending the council commission recommend approval to the city council of a tentative subdivision track map, a site plan review for a phased assisted living and Alzheimer's facility, and then recommend the city council a general plan amendment from public facilities to residential medium density to accommodate a 27-lot single-family subdivision with single attached dwelling units, 2 assisted care facilities and an Alzheimer's care facility, and a 2.13-acre residential high density to accommodate a future 57-unit senior apartment project. Also to recommend to the City Council adoption of a zoning ordinance, or of an ordinance to rezone the property from public facilities to residential medium density and to residential high density with a planned development overlay. And then also recommend to the City Council certification of the initial study and mitigate negative declaration and adopt a mitigation and monitoring program with that. So back in September of 2020, the City of Coalinga accepted an application from Country Road Senior Living for a tentative subdivision map, general plan amendment, rezone, site plan, and environmental review to develop 2 assisted care facilities, 1 Alzheimer's facility, 27 independent living lots, and future 57-unit senior apartment complex with an age restriction for seniors at 55 and over. The proposed project is located on a vacant 11.15-acre site made up of 3 parcels. And I've identified the APN numbers. They don't have actual addresses for them. It is located at the northwest of located on the northwest of Phelps Avenue and Gregory Way within the city limits of Coalinga. Surrounding land uses include vacant and agricultural land to the north, Phelps Avenue and vacant land to the south, the Coalinga Regional Medical Center to the east, and a vacant parcel with an approved 14-lot subdivision to the west, which is the Lux Estates project, and an existing residential neighborhood to the northwest. The current Coalinga General Plan land use designation for the site is public facilities and currently zoned public facilities. The proposed project requires approval of a general plan amendment and a rezone from public facilities to residential medium density and residential high density based on the apartments parcel. The project will be a planned development overlay as a way to encourage creative design and layout of development and efficient use of land. Approval of a tentative subdivision map, conditional use permit, site plan, and environmental review is also required for the proposed project. So in terms of some of the components of the project, and we talked a little bit about it, it's you have the 27 lots of the subdivision map are for single family independent care residential with attached single ADUs, which are additional dwelling units. The square foot average is from 1,100 to 1,300 square feet. I wouldn't say it's an average. It's either 1,100, 1,200, or 1,300 square feet. And I think I've attached the floor plans as well in the report, with a 450 square foot ADU attached to each unit. And for the approvals for that particular, and that's considered phase one. And the approvals for that are the tentative subdivision map, site plan review, rezone, general plan amendment, and the environmental review. Then on phase two is the senior apartments, 57 units. And that will, in terms of the overall site design on that particular project, is going to be under future site plan review. At the time, the developer hasn't quite put together all the architectural drawings, site layout for that. But based on the size of the lot, it's going to be able to accommodate the units. It's just a matter of looking at it from a more specific standpoint once we receive architectural drawings and engineered drawings, which I imagine those are going to be forthcoming relatively soon. And then in the last phase, we have the assisted living facility, a 28-bed assisted living facility of approximately 1,812 square feet. Another assisted living facility with 12 beds of 7,522 square feet, and then an Alzheimer's facility with 20 beds at 10,279 square feet. We talked briefly about the general plan amendment. So the general plan and zoning will need to be changed. Ironically, going through the general plan, and I'm even familiar with this as the tail end of the general plan adoption back in 2012. This project, I've been working with Gary for a long time, and so to be here tonight is actually pretty amazing. Over the years, I've worked with Gary for a long time in terms of we've seen these projects progress and evolve, and so we're seeing this project finally come to fruition, which is great. And because this project was identified in the general plan at the time, I think it was Heritage Park, I think at that time. And so, but when the general plan was adopted and then the zoning was adopted, the zone wasn't necessarily recognizing the type of development. This development's evolved a little bit. And so public facilities at the time was going to accommodate the Alzheimer's facility, but it didn't really take into consideration the residential components of the project. So when we have the zoning that came 10 years later after the general plan was adopted, so we have to make sure it's consistent. And so this will make it consistent with the current zoning regulations. And so we look at relationship to community planning goals regarding orderly growth. And, it's the goal of the city to fully develop vacant underused land within existing community boundaries before expanding them for new development. The proposed general plan amendment is within the existing city limit boundaries and avoids any kind of leapfrog development. In terms of relationships to surrounding uses, we talked about the surrounding uses with existing single-family development and agriculture, as well as the Kalinga Regional Medical Center. So this facility really complements that type of transition. And then land capability and service availability. Land in which the general plan amendment is proposed is vacant land capable of orderly residential development. City services such as water, sewer, natural gas, and solid waste collection are readily available for extension of those services. So it definitely meets a lot of goals that are within the general plan in terms of orderly growth, development, and a mix of types of developments as well. In terms of the plan development overlay, the purpose of the plan development overlay zoning district is to provide the city with the process which authorizes more flexibility in design of the development projects with specially designed areas from the city than would be possible through strict application of the zoning regulations contained in the title to new development in those areas. The Planned Development District encourages new developments to be consistent with smart growth objectives and implement integrated planning for land use, infrastructure, and environment. And basically, we've identified some of the objectives of planned developments. And because there are going to be a lot of this is on private, it's going to be private roads, private property. It's allowed some flexibility in street widths and the organization of the lots, the lot widths, depths, and especially be considering that it's senior housing. we don't necessarily need just the standard, 50 by 100 size lots in these types of subdivisions. So it works within the overall development look. So, I mean, the development meets the plan development standards set forth in the Planning and Zoning Code as it relates to traditional development circulation, open space, pedestrian connections, providing a variety of home sizes, parking, building form, and sustainability. Some of the deviations that have occurred from traditional development standards are, like I mentioned, the lot dimensions and street standards. So in terms of the tentative subdivision map, we kind of have a breakdown of the lot numbers and kind of what's included in those lots. And from the single family lots to the assisted care facilities, the Alzheimer's facilities. The shared parking lot is a separate parcel. However, there will be cross-access agreements to ensure that those parcels remain in connection with the parcels related to the Alzheimer's facility. I think sometimes that has to do with financing mechanisms and other ways of having separate parcels. And so we kind of break down in terms of public improvements as part of this project. Public improvements shall be provided in compliance with the following standards to any property or lot where public improvements were never constructed or installed to city standards, or where such public improvements for whatever cause have deteriorated to a condition that no longer adequately serve their intended purpose. These include right-of-way, curb and gutter, sidewalk, street pave-outs, utilities, street trees, fire hydrants, street lights, and drainage facilities. And as you can see through the conditions of approval, there are off-site improvements, there's on-site improvements, there's right-of-way dedications, there's easements for utility lines that are going to be required as part of this development project. Even though it'll be private roads, there still will be public infrastructure on site, especially with gas, because since we do manage our own gas system. It's necessary that we manage and maintain the transmission lines, the distribution lines, as well as up to the meter connections. And so in terms of some of the development standards for the independent living, the lighting was reviewed and approved by the police department to ensure there'll be adequate lighting for public safety while also ensuring no spillover lighting to adjacent neighborhoods. Landscaping standards such as on-site trees and compliance with model landscape ordinance have been incorporated as a condition of approval to ensure continuity within the development. Access to the proposed lots will be provided via the private entrance at Phelps Avenue, identified as Street E on the map. The main entrance width is 52 feet with 24-foot interior private streets. The 24-foot interior streets, although smaller than the typical 50-foot section in several neighborhoods, parking will be, I imagine you guys were intending not to have parking on the street since it's 24 feet. With the ADUs, there are 3-car garages on all these homes with on-street parking. So there's actually enough for 6 parking places on off-site or off-street. So it'll be very limited in terms of on-street parking. But as we know, with senior facilities, there's typically not a lot of vehicles to begin with. We've seen that in our senior apartments projects where we've deviated from the parking standard to reduce that burden, because these facilities are usually half parked most of the time, and takes up a lot of land and cost too. So with that being a senior facility, we're not anticipating any major issues with overflow or having issues with parking. This will be under a homeowners association, so they will be required to monitor that. So it'll be monitored and maintained, and that will ensure that we do have proper fire access to these facilities in case of any type of emergency where they need to respond. In terms of street naming, the City Council at a future date prior to approval of the final map will determine by resolution the street names associated with the development. So they'll probably have some input. I think we have some lists of street names that have been identified years ago, but it has been a while since we've actually adopted a new subdivision, since probably 2004, where a new subdivision actually had new street names. And so there is a policy. We have to brush the dust off, and we'll be able to identify some of those names or other names that the council may choose for those particular locations, for those streets. All utilities are readily available for connection within the adjacent right-of-way off of Phelps. All utility connections shall be shown on the final map and the final improvement plans, and approved by the city engineer and confirmed by the Public Works Department. On-site storage of storm runoff is not required. Therefore, the development will have to discharge stormwater runoff into the existing surface system. However, as a condition, the applicant shall use in the best case, bioswales and landscaping as a way to reduce the amount of storm runoff that goes into the storm drain system. In terms of the Alzheimer's and assisted living facilities, this project is the one that really requires the conditional use permit and the site plan review. So the proposed Alzheimer's and assisted living facility are classified as residential care facilities and are permitted uses in the RMD zoning district subject to conditional use permit when supervising 7 or more persons. So both of these facilities have that more than that in terms of beds, which means the people, obviously plus employees are going to exceed that number. So it just, the difference is it triggers a conditional use permit. If it was under 7, it would just be permitted by right. So when we analyze that, we do what we typically do with the conditional use permit. We look at the operational characteristics, and we also look at the site design. So in terms of utilities, access from the development will be on Phelps Avenue, right near Gregory. There's 2 access points for circulation. Surprisingly, even with this development here, we have some proposals that we're looking at putting potentially in the future a crosswalk there at Gregory and Phelps. So it'll help control that in and out movement as well. There'll be some striping requirements on Phelps Avenue, as well as some other street improvements in relation to left-hand, right-hand turns into these facilities too. In terms of utilities, gas, water, sewer, all of those utilities are readily available at Phelps Avenue, including sewer. In terms of meters, there'll be water meters for both landscape and domestic use at these facilities. And for the parking standard for these types of developments is 2 spaces for each facility, plus 1 space per 4 adult residents. The proposed development has met the requirement of providing 45 vehicle stalls, where 21 is only required. The numbers that we used for determining the number of persons or adult residents is based on the environmental review document. The environmental document identified the number of persons that would be involved or be provided as part of each one of those facilities. So the number came out to 21, but they've got 45, so there's plenty of parking available. And then a minimum of 1 shade tree for every 10 parking spaces, which shall achieve 50% canopy coverage of paved area at maturity. The shade trees shall be located so to be provided visual relief to long rows of parking vehicles and to provide shade to pedestrian connections. The shade tree species shall be selected from the master tree list maintained by the city. And I think there's a couple spots on the site plan that provided that had a little bit more than 10, so they'll have to make sure that they provide that, but it's not going to bring down their parking requirement below the minimum standard. And this kind of comes to the refuge containers as well. The refuge containers, they really weren't identified specifically on the site plan. The ones that where you could see, I think, is under some of the architect drawings, it showed them kind of off the sidewalk, which is they were kind of odd locations. So we'll be working with, we've talked with the engineer, we're going to be working with the developer on the final site plan to identify the trash enclosure location, which again, that should not affect the overall parking requirement. It may lose 1 or 2 stalls depending on the location, but we don't foresee any kind of major issues with dwindling down that parking impact. In terms of offsite improvements, all offsite improvements have been incorporated into the tentative subdivision map analysis and conditions of approval. So when that final map hits, the majority of the offsite improvements are going to be done as part of the tentative subdivision map, so not necessarily triggered by just the site plan of the Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's care facility. So the majority of those offsites will be included in phase 1. And in terms of environmental clearance, the city prepared an initial study and mitigated negative declaration in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. A 30-day public review comment period for the initial study began on February 23rd and ended on March 25th. Comments were received and have been incorporated within the final initial study and resolution. All mitigation measures have been included in the conditions of approval, and the official mitigation initial study will be incorporated as part of the project approvals. So anything that's identified in that environmental document is tied to this particular project. So the reasons for recommendations, we have 4 different types of findings under 4 different categories. So we have the tentative subdivision map findings that have to be found prior to making a recommendation. We have the general plan amendment findings, the rezone findings, and the site plan findings. And through doing a comprehensive review of this project in reviewing the operations in relation to the general plan, to the zoning ordinance, to the municipal code, that this project is in substantial compliance with all of the regulations related to development of this type and meets the criteria and the findings of all the tentative map, the general plan, the rezone, and the site plan. So with that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions. The applicant is here in person. And so if you have any questions of them, they'd be probably more than happy to answer any questions of them.
Perfect. This is also a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing now for anybody that wants to speak for or against this proposal. I don't know if is there still no one on the Zoom call? Commissioner Pruitt, do you have any questions?
So you have the senior housing there. I know on the other side to the east is where the hospital is. And I'm wondering if there's going to be any access point where residents can get to the hospital without having to go over on Phelps.
It's not the intention to have that connection point there.
Okay.
Because the apartments will be on that easterly side of that. And you can kind of see where the footprint of the apartments have been proposed. But since we didn't have the full document package to do a full site plan, that's why we've kind of deferred that to a separate approval. However, you can kind of see there's not really any access point there to get through to the property.
Okay.
There was talk about doing an emergency access right there, but when they decided to move with phase 1 being the subdivision map, it didn't necessitate having emergency access. So we're going to have that full circulation from phase 1.
Okay. And then my other question is, with this being residential medium density and then moving into residential high density, how close does that bring us into compliance with the state regulations for density?
The state regulations for density?
Well,
or you mean just for housing?
for housing
So
compliance.
most likely, and Gary may be able to provide a little bit more light in terms of the potential residents, but it's not an affordable housing project. And so typically it's going to fall probably under moderate to above moderate housing, which is going to, we do have numbers of moderate to above moderate, but as you know, the state seems to really lend towards making sure that we provide more on the housing element side, on the below moderate or your, the household median income that's below like 50%. So in this case, it's probably going to help with the moderate and above moderate, but I'm not sure what the overall income levels they're expecting for this type of project.
Okay. Do you want
Did you guys have any information on that, on kind of the clientele on that project? Okay, so probably moderate to above moderate than what you're expecting? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garza. Okay. Commissioner Helmer.
Sean,
Oh, is your mic on? Is your mic on? Is it on?
yeah.
There you go.
What comments and from whom did you get regarding the mitigated negative declaration?
Yeah, I should look that up. I think it was Caltrans, and they had no comments. Well, they responded, but they didn't
Right.
have any comments. And then it was just Department of Fish and Game
Okay.
and the Air Pollution Control District. So their comments were integrated into the final document. We did do a response to comments, which we have available, but there wasn't anything substantial to necessitate changing anything in the document.
Okay. And
But-
was there any community comments
No.
about the project at all?
No, just during the environmental review process, we received comments from just the different agencies.
Then, gentlemen, if you could kind of explain to me the idea behind this complex. I mean, what is it? What's your vision for this area?
And Gary, if you go up there, I think you, Larry, he has to hit the button, right?
Nope.
Oh, it's ready to go. You're live.
Yes. I, I want to go back a little bit. Several years ago, as Sean was talking about, I was invited here by the Assisted Living Task Force, Dr. Zwang and his group. And they had a vision in terms of wanting to create a kind of a continuum of care community here. And the choices of lots we had were throughout the city, and the lot that we picked was that lot because of the relationship to the medical center and also the extended care facility, along with the independent houses that we have, the assisted living apartments that we have, and the assisted living and memory support facilities. We kind of created that whole scenario there of a continuum of care. So the sad part was is that all these years have gone and this vision was never realized until now. But we were going to do the assisted living first, but the pandemic basically kicked us in the behind. Construction loans for assisted living are just not to be found. That's why we kind of switched things around to the houses first, the apartment. And as things loosen up, and they will loosen up, I'm seeing that it's the third phase. It's not necessarily the third phase. It could be the second phase altogether. So, but the whole vision was to create a continuum of care for Kalinga. So
Now, there's two assisted living facilities, one with 12 and one with 28. What's the difference between the two, and why are they separate?
the reason
and not
why
combined?
the 12 are more than likely are going to become hospice.
Okay.
So again, the whole vision of continuum is what we're looking for.
Okay. And then the housing itself. Who's your target audience?
Well, the whole idea behind it is that it's 55 or over.
Oh,
Our vision is that it's going to be over,
okay.
and that senior who purchased it, the whole idea was family and son can be moving into the main house. And when you break down the rental on the thing in terms of if they bought the unit and they came down with the traditional 20%, they could be living in this for about $700 to $750 a month.
Mhm.
And so it becomes real affordable in that sense, so. But when that person moves on to the apartment, as long as that son or the ownership stays in that person's name, the family still can live there. So
Even if they're under 55.
exactly.
Okay. But the whole ADU, that's the part that I was finding interesting.
Yeah.
So the idea is that like the younger part of the family would live in the main part of the house and then the,
It could work that way. Or the senior could live in the main portion of the house and as an ADU rent it out because there is a shortage, a serious shortage here. And with that payment of renting the ADU, like I said, they can lower their payment down to $750 a month.
If they did rent out that ADU, would it have to be to somebody 55 and over?
No,
No? Oh, okay.
just the ownership of the property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and they all come with that, they're all in this arrangement.
I'm sorry.
All of the houses will have this ADU on it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Every one of them. Yeah.
Okay. I
And
just
the
hadn't seen
ADUs,
that.
as you can see in the plans, are, kitchen, laundry, everything. You got the double car garage, but there's a driveway that allows parking for 3 cars in the
Mhm.
driveway, so.
And there's no connection internally between the two?
No.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
What is your planned, how long do you think the build out will take? What are you anticipating?
I'd like to say that we can get this thing all done within 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like I say, as things open up, and they are,
Yeah.
especially on a single family house, that's a no-brainer. And the apartments, especially senior apartments, they beg you almost to take that.
Yeah.
It's the assisted living part, but that's going to loosen up. And when we do get the availability to do it, or the other situation, as my partner said, that let's build a damn thing cash. So
Now the homes that are going to be for sale, do you have any other complexes that are like that?
we have many that are in progress. Dan is working with me on one in Oakhurst, the big one that we're doing in Oakhurst. So we're in the valley and we're taking the vision that we had and trying to put it in place. If you know the term CCRCs, that is the big buy-in, and is it's for the deluxe, the elite, and this isn't. We're looking at a vision of being able to create this on an affordable basis, so that the person that goes in and buys one of these units, they own it. They have the ability to then sell it, which will support them all the way through the other portions of their age process.
So you don't foresee any difficulties selling these units? Because so I have, my grandparents own property in Arizona in a 55 and over community. I've spent time there, and generally you get into that type of property, and most everybody is not welcoming to somebody long term under 55. So I just don't know if that will be a detriment allowing younger people, but you've been successful in other markets with this.
You see that most of the newer visions for these projects are intergenerational.
Okay.
And it's a big thing, especially in Arizona.
Yeah.
In Tucson.
Yeah.
And they're building in Phoenix, building high rises, and it's all intergenerational. They're just trying to make that mixture. In fact, one of the visions that we have for ours that's much like what in Japan, where our elders are called living treasures. We want to be able to harness that into classrooms and ability to teach the younger generations in some of these activity areas that we want to do, various things that we're doing. Thus the name Heritage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, looks very nice. Everything. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, like I said, Dan is available for any questions that you might have of him.
Okay. Thank you very much.
But your staff did a hell of a job.
Oh, yes. We have very good staff. We have very good staff. Yes. Yes.
That was not an easy process that he brought this project through.
Yeah.
And I salute your staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no need for any further discussion, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And if there's no need for anything else, the chair will entertain a motion.
I motion to approve.
Commissioner Helmer made the motion to approve. Does the motion have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Garza made the second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Helmar,
Aye.
Commissioner Garza,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Chairman Saylor.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving right along to department reports.
I have none.
Okay. No other action items. Commissioner announcements? Nothing. All righty. Well, meeting adjourned. Thank you.